Welcome to NFL Nexus, everyone. Look, we are about to jump into one of the trickiest, most high-stakes situations in the entire NFL offseason. We're talking about the Indianapolis Colts. This is a team that, for a minute there last season, looked like they had it all figured out. But now they're standing on the edge of a cliff. They have to make this massive choice between the franchise quarterback they've been desperate for and the explosive offensive weapon that makes the whole thing go. And here's the kicker. It all comes down to a budget that is stretched so thin you can practically see through it. Believe me, this isn't just about one season. The decision they make right now is going to define the next 5 years of Colts football.
Okay, so let's just get right to it because this is the entire story in one sentence. Ever since Andrew Luck hung up his cleats, the Colts have been stuck on this brutal quarterback carousel. I mean, they've tried everything and everyone. But last season, Daniel Jones comes to town, and under head coach Shane Steichen, something just clicks. He didn't just play okay. He played the best football of his entire career. But here's the problem, right? When you play that well, you earn a monster contract. A contract so big that it puts them in danger of losing Alec, a guy who isn't just a good receiver. He is, by the numbers, one of the most dangerous deep threats in the whole league. It's a financial train wreck waiting to happen, and somebody's going to have to get out of the way.
So here's how we're going to break this whole thing down today. First, we'll set the scene by looking back at Indy's absolutely wild 2025 season. Then we're going to put that $30 million problem under the microscope. After that, we'll do a deep dive on both Daniel Jones and Alec, what they're worth, who else wants them, and the risks for each. We're even going to look at a super risky, almost unthinkable financial move the Colts could try to pull off. And then we'll wrap it all up with what the experts think is going to happen when the dust settles. All right, let's jump into part one. Indy's postseason crossroads. You see, to really get why this offseason is so huge for them, you have to understand the emotional whiplash of their 2025 season. It was a year that promised everything and, well, ended up leaving the team and its fans right back where they started, at a massive fork in the road. Man, just looking at this slide gives you whiplash. Think about it, that 8-2 start. For a brief, shining moment, through 10 games, the Indianapolis Colts had the best record in the entire NFL. They weren't just scraping by, they were dominating good teams. The chemistry between Daniel Jones and that offense, you could feel it. They looked like a real-deal Super Bowl contender. For a fan base that has been starving for that feeling, it was absolutely electric. But then, the collapse. And it was just as spectacular, leading to another losing season. And that failure means their drought without an AFC South title is now over a decade long. That is a huge shadow hanging over this franchise. So you've got this incredible high, then this soul-crushing low, all in 1 year. But in all of that mess, one thing seemed to become crystal clear to the front office. They believe Daniel Jones is the guy. He's the answer they've been looking for. So all of that leads us right here to the heart of the matter, the $30 million dilemma. This is the part where that amazing feeling of finding your quarterback smashes right into the cold, hard wall of the NFL salary cap. It's that classic problem, champagne dreams, but a beer budget. And it's going to force their GM to make a decision that could change the team for years to come. Just take a good, long look at that number with me, $30 million. I mean, to us, that's life-changing money. But in the NFL, that's barely scraping by, especially when you have major holes to fill. Let me put it in perspective for you. The top quarterbacks are getting paid more than $50 million a year now. Elite receivers are getting $25 million a year. So that $30 million, that's not a war chest to go build a dynasty. It's just enough money to maybe solve one big problem. This is what's boxing in GM Chris Ballard. He absolutely cannot afford to make a mistake here because one bad contract, one wrong move, and the whole thing could just fall apart. And boom, here it is. This is the whole problem right here. You've got that tight $30 million budget on one side, and on the other side, you've got two guys who are absolutely critical to your offense. We're not talking about role players. We're talking about two legitimate stars who are both about to get the biggest paychecks of their lives. I mean, you don't have to be a math genius to see the problem. How in the world do you fit two gigantic contracts into a space that can barely hold one? That is the question keeping the lights on late at night in Indianapolis. So let's start unpacking the biggest piece of this puzzle, Daniel Jones. You got to remember, for 6 years with the Giants, this guy was a total mystery. One play, he'd look like a superstar, and the next, he'd make a head-scratching turnover. But his first year in Indy, something was different. Something clicked. He became that efficient, dynamic leader the Colts have been praying for. He is their guy, their cornerstone. But that cornerstone comes with some pretty serious cracks. Okay, let's really look at these numbers because they tell a story. That 68% completion rate,
That's not just good, that is surgically precise. It's a career high for him by a long shot, and it puts him right up there with the best passers in the league last season. But for me, the most important stat here is the touchdown to interception ratio. 19 touchdowns to only 8 picks. For years, the big knock on Daniel Jones was that he was a turnover machine. This ratio shows you he's matured, he's mastered Shane Steichen's offense, and he's protecting the football. And don't sleep on those 5 rushing touchdowns either. That shows his legs are still a weapon, which is huge for extending plays. This is, without a doubt, the best version of Daniel Jones we have ever seen.
So you might be asking, why are the Colts so determined to keep him? Well, it really starts with Shane Steichen. The guy is an offensive wizard. He's made every quarterback he's ever worked with better, from Justin Herbert to Jalen Hurts. Daniel Jones is just his latest success story. But it's actually deeper than that. You have to look at what the front office has done. Before last season, they traded away 2 future first-round picks to get superstar corner Sauce Gardner. You just do not make a move that big, basically trading your future, unless you think you're a quarterback away from being a real contender. That trade was an all-in bet on Daniel Jones. And what's more, reports say the team doesn't think last year's top pick, Anthony Richardson, is ready to be the answer, which makes keeping Jones that much more critical. But, and this is a huge but, this is not a slam dunk. The risks involved here are massive. First of all, the injuries. We're talking about a torn Achilles, which is one of the worst injuries an athlete can have. And he got a fractured fibula in the same season. For a quarterback who needs his mobility, that's just terrifying. Then there's the price. We're talking $40, maybe even more, $1 million a year. That's not just a number on a spreadsheet. That completely changes how you build your team. A contract that big would swallow up their entire $30 million in cap space, and then some. They'd have to pull off some serious financial magic just to be legal. You're not just signing a quarterback, you're betting the entire future of the franchise on one guy. And the Colts don't get to have this conversation in a vacuum. The rest of the league is watching. They saw what Jones did under a great coach. You've got to keep a close eye on the Minnesota Vikings. Their coach, Kevin O'Connell, is another offensive genius, and there are whispers they aren't sold on their rookie QB, J.J. McCarthy. Plus, Jones was briefly on their roster in 2024, so they know him. Then you have a wildcard team like the Arizona Cardinals. With Kyler Murray's huge contract and up-and-down play, they might be looking for a new direction. And you know what all this outside interest does, right? It just gives Jones's agent all the leverage, and it drives that price tag higher and higher. Okay, let's switch gears and talk about the other guy at the center of this storm, wide receiver Alec Pierce. I really can't overstate how important this guy is to the Colts offense. He's not just another receiver, he's a specialist. He's that rare player whose speed completely changes how a defense has to play. He's the key that unlocks the entire offense. So let's really dig into this, because these details show you that Pierce is truly special. First off, he's only 25. He's just now hitting his peak, which is a scary, scary thought for the rest of the league. And leading the NFL in yards per catch for 2 years in a row, that's not some fluke. That proves he's a certified game breaker. It means that basically every time he touches the ball, it's an explosive play. Defenses have to put a safety over the top of him on every single down, and that in turn opens up everything else. The running game, the short passes. And look at this last point. The only other guy recently to get over 1,000 yards while averaging over 20 yards a catch was A.J. Brown. That's the kind of company he's in. That is truly elite superstar production. And this is where it gets tough. This is where the cold, hard business of football runs into human emotion. You read this quote from Alec Pierce, and you can just hear it in his voice. This is a guy who loves Indianapolis. He loves the team, the city. He wants to be there. And that's what makes this so difficult. It's not just a business transaction anymore. How do you look a guy like this in the eyes? A guy who has been elite for you and who wants to stay and say, sorry, man, we just can't afford you. It's a brutal, brutal part of the game. And just like with Daniel Jones, you better believe the Colts aren't the only team that sees how special Alec Pierce is. I mean, the Sharks are circling. Every team on this list is desperate for a player like him. The Commanders have new owners, and they've said they want to get younger and faster. Pierce is a perfect fit. The Raiders need someone to take the top off the defense for Devontae Adams. The Steelers are trying to give their young QB more weapons. The Bills are always looking for another guy to help out Stephon Diggs. All of this interest means one thing: a bidding war is coming. And in a bidding war, the price almost always goes way higher than what the Colts can afford to pay. So we've laid it all out. It feels like an impossible situation, doesn't it? You have a quarterback who costs more than you have, and a receiver whose price is about to go through the roof. It seems like it has to be one or the other. But what if it's not? What if there's a third door, a wild card option that's incredibly risky, but might just solve the whole problem? I mean, this is the $1 million question, or I guess the $30 million question, for the Colts front office. Can they thread this needle? Is there some narrow, dangerous path that actually ends with both Daniel Jones and Alec Pierce in a Colts uniform next season? It sounds like a fantasy, but let's explore the one crazy move that could make it happen. And here it is. This is what we call the nuclear option. Michael Pittman Jr. is the heart and soul of that offense. He's the tough, reliable receiver who gets you first downs. He and Pierce are the perfect yin and yang. Pittman moves the chains, and Pierce hits the home run. Cutting him would send shockwaves through that locker room. You'd lose a captain, a leader, and you'd risk totally wrecking team chemistry. But just look at the other side of the coin. $24 million in cap savings. That is the magic wand that would instantly take their available cap from $30 million to $54 million. All of a sudden, you have plenty of cash to sign Jones to his massive deal and make a very strong offer to keep Alec Pierce. It's a cold, calculated, absolutely ruthless business decision. And it comes down to one question. Are you willing to cut off a perfectly healthy limb to save the body?
Okay, we've looked at the players, we've looked at the money, we've even looked at the crazy gamble they could take. So now, let's get to the bottom line. How is this whole drama probably going to end? Based on what the experts who cover the league are saying, what's the most likely outcome?
So the overwhelming consensus, led by folks like Zachary Perliz at CBS Sports, is that when push comes to shove, the Colts are not letting their quarterback walk out the door. In today's NFL, the quarterback is everything. After years and years of searching, the Colts truly believe they've found their guy. GM Chris Ballard and coach Shane Steichen have tied their careers to Daniel Jones being the answer. They will move heaven and earth to get a deal done. They'll restructure other contracts, they'll push money into the future, whatever it takes. But one way or another, Daniel Jones is getting paid, and he's staying in Indianapolis. But for every action, there's a reaction, right? And the painful consequence of committing to the quarterback is this. The casualty is going to be Alec Pierce. It's simple math. Once the Colts lock in over $40 million a year for Jones, they just won't have anything left in the bank to compete in the bidding war for Pierce. And a team like the Washington Commanders, who have a ton of cap space and desperately need a young, fast receiver, well, they become the obvious landing spot. They can give Pierce the massive contract he's earned, a contract that the Colts, after paying their quarterback, just can't match. And that leaves us with this one big, nagging question. If this prediction comes true, the Colts solve their number one problem. They've got their quarterback for the next 5 years. But to do it, they had to let his most dangerous weapon walk away. It's the ultimate catch-22 of building a team in the NFL. You pay a quarterback like a superstar because of what he does with his receivers, and then that massive contract makes it impossible to afford those same receivers. So it leaves you wondering, did they really solve a problem, or did they just trade it for a brand new one? You know, this is one of those situations where there's no easy answer, and that's why I want to hear from you. Okay, you're the GM. What's your move? Do you pay Daniel Jones no matter what? Do you make keeping Alec Pierce the number one priority? Or do you pull the trigger on that insane Michael Pittman Jr. gamble? Get down in the comments and let me know your plan. And hey, if you liked his breakdown, it would be a huge help if you hit that like button and make sure you subscribe to NFL Nexus so you never miss one of our explainers. And hey, one last thing before you go. A really great way to support what we do here is to check out our new coloring books. They're perfect for kids, grandkids. Honestly, they're great for adults too. It's a fun way to unwind. You can find the link right down in the description or just scan the QR code on your screen. We really appreciate all of your support. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you for the next deep dive right here on NFL Nexus.